upgraded in any way. Odyssey was holding her right shoulder.
Sophie Cunningham's fiery response after WNBA police stare down in Fever win versus Atlanta Dream. The Indiana Fever finally broke through and grabbed that long-awaited playoff win, the type of moment fans had been starving for. But trust the WNBA to turn what should have been pure celebration into yet another messy fiasco. Instead of headlines about Lexi Hull's ice-cold game-saving steal or the fearless performances of Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, the spotlight got yanked toward a bizarre clash between Sophie Cunningham and a league-hired security guard. Picture this: Sophie, strapped up in a bulky leg brace, clearly nowhere near game-ready, just standing and soaking in the victory. She wasn't storming the court, wasn't looking for drama. And yet, a security guard decided to play tough guy, barking at her like she just jumped in the middle of an all-out brawl. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing, and the cameras caught every second of it. What Sophie said next? That's what has people buzzing all over social media. Here's the real question. Was this just some clueless overreaction from an overzealous rent-a-cop desperate to flex authority? Or was it something darker? Another example of the league's ugly pattern of targeting certain players who don't fit their carefully polished narrative? When you look at the history, it's hard not to shake the feeling Sophie was singled out on purpose. And her response, calm, firm, and dripping with defiance, made it crystal clear she wasn't about to let some glorified hall monitor push her around. And that's the wildest part. This moment hijacked what should have been nothing but pure joy.
Sims goes down hard, and Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark, Chloe Bibby are waiting for her at half court, and the cop tries to get Sophie Cunningham to move. Sophie Cunningham was like, "You're not going to get me to move. I'm waiting for Odyssey." And you could see during the review, look at Sophie Cunningham clapping, not moving, waiting for her teammate. That's the Fever.
The Fever, missing Caitlin Clark and half their rotation. Ari McDonald, Sydney Colson, Chloe Bibby, Damiris Dantas, and Sophie herself had still pulled off a dramatic playoff stunner. Fans were losing their minds, the building was electric, and the celebration was supposed to be all about history. Instead, it got twisted into another league-made controversy. Instead of a heartwarming scene of Sophie soaking in her team's playoff win, fans were hit with a surreal image. Sophie, strapped in a heavy brace, standing harmlessly at midcourt, only to be confronted like a criminal by league security. No scuffle, no violation, no chaos, nothing. Yet somehow she was treated like a threat that needed to be contained, and the whole thing looked ridiculous on national TV. Think about the optics here. Sophie Cunningham, clearly injured, barely able to move at full speed, being pressed by a security guard who looked way too eager to escalate a situation that didn't even exist.
She's like that. She ain't moving. And then she puts her hands on the hip. Let me talk to your manager. Oh, shit. All right, Sophie, say no more. Say no more. Now, when your teammate gets injured, you're allowed to hop on the court and just to see if your teammate's doing good. So, injured, healthy. So, Chloe, Sophie, they had every right to be on the court.
The cameras captured it all. Sophie's face shifting from confused to annoyed to that infamous Cunningham glare fans know by heart. That glare screamed loud and clear. Really? This is what you're pulling right now? And honestly, she had every right to hit him with that look. Within minutes, the moment exploded on social media. Clips of Sophie's stare down went viral instantly. The reaction? Pure outrage. Not at Sophie, but at the absurdity of the whole scene. Fans could see for themselves it wasn't security, it was harassment, plain and simple.
Driving to the foul line, in the paint, lays it in. Sims, crossover, left to right, gets into the paint, layup, good!
Inside, Boston.
And here's the deeper sting. This plays straight into the tired narrative that's followed Sophie her entire career. Why does this keep happening? Because Sophie refuses to play by the WNBA's script. She speaks her mind, challenges the polished narratives, and carries herself with fearless confidence that rattles people who'd rather see her quiet. Rival fans don't like it, certain media outlets don't like it, and now, it looks like even the league's own staff are showing they don't like it either. This is Sophie Cunningham we're talking about. The same player who trends on Twitter every other week, whose highlight clips rack up millions of views, and who has one of the loudest, most ride-or-die fan bases in women's basketball. She's good for business, no question. But instead of embracing her star power, the WNBA keeps painting her like she's some kind of problem child. The internet wasn't quiet about it either. Comments flooded Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube within minutes of that clip dropping.
Right here.
Some fans said it outright.
Yeah, you see this guy right here? Right in this genital area? You see this guy? The ref asked this dude to step out here. All right? Now, Cheryl Swoops wants this referee fired. She wants him fired. Look, he felt something. He felt something was amiss. Of course, Cheryl Swoops is defending these.
Sophie gets singled out because she doesn't fit the league's picture-perfect image. Others took it even further, pointing out the racial and cultural double standards that nobody wants to admit. They said if Angel Reese or Paige Buchers had been in Sophie's spot, the story would have flipped instantly. Look at their passion, look at their leadership. But Sophie standing in a leg brace? Suddenly she's the villain. Fans weren't having it. Hashtags like #FreeSophie and #WNBA Exposed were trending within hours, blasting the league for how obvious this bias looked. And here's what really stung. Sophie didn't even create the drama. She didn't push, didn't lash out, didn't cause a scene. She just stood her ground, hit the guard with that icy glare, and refused to be intimidated. Calm, controlled, but unshakably defiant. Sophie showed more professionalism in that moment than the very security guard who tried to provoke her.
Watching these people break down. It's a meltdown. It's a meltdown on Twitter today. It's embarrassing to a certain extent. Not for me, for them. And then we got the Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever getting booed as they're getting off their court.
And that's exactly why the clip went viral, because fans could see who was really out of line. Now let's connect some dots. This isn't new behavior from the league. Remember when refs claimed they felt uncomfortable with Dijonai Carrington and security suddenly got involved? Back then, the league rushed to defend Carrington. The Players Association stepped in and the story was framed as unfair treatment. So why the radio silence when the exact same thing happens to Sophie Cunningham? Why is it only the fans raising hell about the double standard, while league leadership sits back and says nothing?
We all know that if there's one thing that male sports fans want to see in their spaces and on their screens, it's more of me.
That's the part that's got people heated. Because this isn't about one security guard flexing his badge, it's about the WNBA's bigger problem, punishing players who don't fit the mold. Just look at Caitlin Clark. She's been living this nightmare since her rookie year. Getting hacked, shoved, taunted, and straight up targeted game after game, while refs swallow their whistles and the league shrugs like it's business as usual. And Sophie? She's been painted as the villain for years, no matter what she does. Put those two storylines together, and you don't just see isolated moments. You see a disturbing pattern the league can't hide anymore. The truth is ugly. The WNBA doesn't know how to handle stars who don't play by their script. Instead of embracing them, they marginalize them. And it makes zero sense. Because here's the irony. Both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are exactly the kind of players the league should be hyping up. They're marketable, magnetic, and they drive engagement like no one else. Think about it. Sophie, even while injured, had the whole internet buzzing over a single glare. Clark? She's the biggest draw in women's basketball history, period. These are dream assets for a struggling league. Yet instead of protecting them, the WNBA allows referees and even their own staff to mistreat them on the biggest stages. And the fans? They're fed up. Within hours of Sophie's incident, comment sections were on fire, ripping the league apart for embarrassing her during what should have been a pure, joyful celebration. Fans were quick to remind everyone, This isn't the first time the
We're
WNBA's double
literally not
standards have
supposed
been on
to be
full
here
display.
at all. And that just like kind of fuels our fire even more. But it was just like so fun. It was one of those games that, first of all, I was sweating my ass off because I was so nervous and like, I don't really get anxious about stuff. I was so anxious. Like I could not sit still. I was legit.
People pointed out how the league once went as far as investigating fans for booing Angel Reese, yet in the same breath brushed off flagrant fouls against Caitlin Clark as just part of the game. The same selective enforcement, the same selective outrage, the same selective protection, and every single time, the league's credibility takes another hit. And let's keep it real. This isn't just bad optics, it's flat-out bad business. The WNBA keeps begging for growth, respect, and mainstream relevance. But how do you get there when your most watched moments turn into viral clips of your players being harassed by your own staff? Fans don't want to see their favorites silenced, sidelined, or treated like problems. They want to see them celebrated. Instead, what they're watching is a league slowly crumbling under its own contradictions. Here's where it really snowballed. The more fans replayed Sophie's confrontation, the more they started connecting dots. They dug up the repeated double standards, the repeated failures, the repeated moments where Clark and Sophie were left unprotected while others were coddled. Suddenly, this wasn't just a viral clip anymore. It was Exhibit A in a case study of everything broken inside the WNBA. The leadership, the officiating, the misplaced priorities. And that's when things went from frustrating to downright revealing. Because Sophie Cunningham isn't just some player in sweats on the sideline. She's outspoken, fiery, and flat out refuses to be molded into the league's safe, polished narrative. She doesn't bow down to league-approved storylines, she doesn't sand down her edges to make media more comfortable, and she sure as hell doesn't play the smiling mascot role the WNBA would prefer. She's not Paige Buchers, the league's golden heir to Clark. She's not Angel Reese, the controversy machine they can't stop pushing. Sophie is something scarier to them. Someone they can't control, can't box in, and can't spin into their marketing script.
Call the FBI. Call the local police department. We need an investigation as to who was raining down those boos on the Indiana Fever. They're all racist. Or, hear me out here, or this is sports and that's expected. Notice how the Indiana Fever players, oh, they didn't cry. Oh my God. No.
Here's the irony. The very thing that makes Sophie Cunningham such a problem to the league is exactly what makes her so loved by the fans. That defiance, that refusal to water herself down for anyone, has made her one of the most popular players in women's basketball. People connect with her because she's real, unfiltered, and bold enough to say the things everyone else is too scared to put out loud. That's the exact kind of energy a league begging for mainstream relevance should be celebrating. But instead of embracing her as a draw, the WNBA acts like they'd rather erase her impact altogether. Just look at the receipts. How many times have you seen Sophie front and center in league promos? Almost never. Yet her name trends constantly, her highlights rack up endless clicks, and her interviews get replayed more than most of the so-called faces of the league. But the hypocrisy is crystal clear. If Sophie gets into a dust-up, she's instantly branded the villain. Meanwhile, if Angel Reese pulls the same move, the league spins it as passion, swagger, and star power. Fans aren't blind, they see the favoritism and they're calling it out louder than ever. That's why the confrontation with security hits so differently. Sophie, strapped up in a brace, simply supporting her teammates, only to get barked at like a trespasser. That was hypocrisy at its absolute peak. There was no logical explanation for it, except the uncomfortable one nobody at league headquarters wants to admit.
It was physical, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of great plays. But I just knew deep down in my gut that we were going to win. Like, somehow we were going to win in, like, I think it was like a minute or like 40, I don't even know, like around 40 seconds left. And they left our all-star player wide open under the hoop for the go-ahead layup. And then Lexi Hall had a freaking badass steal, and like it was over. But
and here's where the damage goes beyond Sophie herself, is because the newcomers are watching. Millions of casual fans pulled into women's basketball by Caitlin Clark's star power, tuned in this season only to see nonsense like this dominating headlines. They weren't talking about Lexi Hull's heroic steal or the Fever's gutsy resilience. They were talking about Sophie Cunningham versus the mall cop. When outsiders see a league more focused on petty drama than on celebrating its basketball, they don't walk away impressed. They walk away shaking their heads. When casual fans walk away convinced the WNBA is unserious, that perception is lethal. And this fiasco poured gasoline on that fire. The backlash online was instant and brutal. Comment sections weren't filled with polite critiques. They were raging infernos blasting Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, accusing her of presiding over the most embarrassing league in professional sports. And some fans went even further, flat out demanding her resignation. They accused her of turning the WNBA into a circus act, a league where the sideshow drama overshadows the actual competition. And here's the cold truth. When people are talking more about your controversies than your games, that's not growth. That's collapse, dressed up as buzz. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham handled the storm better than anyone could have scripted. She didn't explode, didn't throw fuel on the fire, and didn't hand the league any easy ammunition. Instead, she stood tall, stared down the nonsense, and let her body language deliver the message.
Sophie Cunningham,
You will
because
not
she's
intimidate
white,
me.
She's beautiful. All these things, right? Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100, as they say. Sophie Cunningham is the most beautiful woman in this league. All right, she's the hottest woman in this league, and they're mad they can't be her.
Fans noticed immediately, flooding her socials with love and crowning her the hero of the night. And in classic Cunningham fashion, she brushed it all off with sharp humor. No angry press conference, no bitter rant, just a subtle jab that reminded everyone she's in control of her own story. That's the kicker. The league thinks targeting Sophie weakens her, but every time they try, her popularity only multiplies. Fans adore an underdog who refuses to be silenced, and Sophie has become the perfect embodiment of that energy. But let's not get it twisted. This isn't just a Sophie problem. This is a league-wide failure. The WNBA has a disturbing track record of failing to protect and promote the very stars who drive its success. Just look at Caitlin Clark. For 2 straight seasons, she's taken harder fouls than anyone, constantly hacked, shoved, and taunted while refs let it slide like nothing happened. The league keeps shrugging it off when fans are done with it. They're furious at the lack of protection and the blatant bias on display. Just look at Lexi Hull. Her playoff heroics should have been headline news, yet the league's own media barely gave her a passing mention, even as fans hailed her as clutch. And now Sophie gets humiliated by league security in the middle of what should have been a celebration.
F is that
That's not
security
coincidence.
guard
That's a
all up
pattern.
on Sophie Cunningham. And look, I think there is a reason she got up in Sophie's face. And I don't think there was any need to sort of bow up to Sophie like that. I don't think, and to Sophie's credit,
The WNBA loves to push a neat little storyline about collective growth, that everyone's contributing and the league is rising together. But the truth fans see is way uglier. Leadership picks favorites and pushes others to the margins, deciding who gets the spotlight and who gets shoved aside. And that kind of selective promotion, it isn't just unfair, it's catastrophic. Because you can't demand loyalty from fans while mistreating the very players they love. Eventually, people stop showing up. And once the seats are empty, no shiny TV deal or last-minute sponsorship can cover up that crater. That's why Indiana's playoff run should have been a league-wide victory lap. Even without Caitlin Clark, even with half their roster banged up, the Fever still pulled off the win. That was supposed to be the story. Instead, the spotlight got stolen by a rent-a-cop barking at Sophie Cunningham. The league could have amplified Lexi Hull's defensive brilliance, Aaliyah Boston's steady dominance, Kelsey Mitchell's fearless leadership, or the resilience of a shorthanded squad clawing their way through the playoffs. Instead, fans were online clowning the WNBA over mall cop antics. That's not just embarrassing, that's malpractice. And sitting dead center in all of this is Sophie Cunningham, whose only crime was caring about her team. Wearing a brace, clearly injured, limping, and still treated like she was storming the floor to start a fight. That one scene told fans everything they needed to know about how the league treats players who don't fit their mold. And the backlash? It's not slowing down one bit. The backlash isn't just loud, it's growing by the hour. What started as frustration over one ugly moment has snowballed into a full-blown indictment of the WNBA's leadership. Fans aren't just mad at what happened to Sophie Cunningham. They're connecting the dots, and what they see is a league sabotaging its own future. Think about it. The Fever's playoff win should have been a celebration of grit, heart, and resilience. Instead, the viral moment was Sophie Cunningham being barked at like an intruder while limping in a brace. That image traveled farther than any highlight reel, and it told casual fans everything they needed to know. This league doesn't protect its stars. It humiliates them. Sponsors are watching this too. No brand wants to tie itself to an organization that looks messy, unprofessional, and incapable of handling success. The WNBA has spent years begging corporate partners to invest, and now those same companies are seeing the headlines dominated by mall cop controversies instead of playoff triumphs. That's not just a PR hiccup, that's a credibility crisis. And here's the scariest part. Once fans feel like the league doesn't care about their favorite players, they don't just complain, they walk away. Empty seats and plummeting viewership follow close behind, and history has already proven how fragile this league's momentum is. All the progress Caitlin Clark sparked this season can vanish overnight if new fans decide it's not worth the drama. Sophie Cunningham didn't ask to be the center of this firestorm, but once again she's become the symbol of everything the WNBA is getting wrong. And fans aren't letting it go this time. The outrage is boiling over, and it's already shaping the narrative for the entire postseason. It just keeps building. Every clip, every screenshot, every meme adds more fuel to the fire. Fans aren't seeing Sophie as a troublemaker anymore. They're framing her as the underdog hero, the one player bold enough to stand tall against a league that looks dead set on sidelining her. The WNBA can try to spin it, drop their bland PR statements, or pretend it wasn't that serious. But here's the truth. It won't work. The people have already decided. Sophie was wronged, and the league looks ridiculous all over again. And that's exactly why this incident matters so much. Because once again, the story isn't about basketball. It's about the WNBA tripping over itself, turning triumph into scandal, and proving they still don't know how to handle their biggest stars. Fans wanted to celebrate a playoff win, to talk about Lexi Hull's heroics, Aaliyah Boston's dominance, Kelsey Mitchell's leadership. Instead, the headlines are about Sophie Cunningham versus a mall cop and the league's inability to get out of its own way. The truth is simple. Moments like this stick. They don't fade away because fans won't let them. And the longer the league drags its feet, the more Sophie's defiance becomes a rallying cry, and the more fans start questioning if the WNBA even deserves the spotlight it's been given. Do you think Sophie is being singled out? Drop your thoughts down below in the comments, smash that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, and don't forget to share this video so more people see what's really going on. And of course, we'll see you on the next one.